All right, so here we are. This is Marvel Live Draw. I am Ryan Stegman, the current artist for Marvel Comics' Venom and King in Black, which came out last week. You're here in my studio in lovely Michigan. So, in my basement, invading my privacy. Today I'm going to be drawing Venom for you because that's what I do best, monsters and stuff like that. So as you can see, first of all, I'm starting with I had a layout here that was is just for the first drawing I'm going to do is a headshot. So this was a quick sketch I did the other day to just get ready for this. So if you want to see, I can make this darker for a second. That's the initial sketch. Took about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to show you how I finish my work. We normally start with a preliminary drawing and then, you kind of go forward from there. A lot of times we do it in blue. I guess I don't have to do it in blue because this is digital. I'm drawing on a Cintiq right now. But when I'm doing it on pages, I print it out in blue or I draw with a blue pencil because when you reproduce the artwork or scan it in, it's easy to drop out that blue and you just are left with the dark lines. So right now I'm adding some dark lines as I kind of tighten this up and make sure it's ready to be inked, which would be the next step. So you do your thumbnail, and then you do your finished pencils, and then you do your inks. So that's kind of the whole process in a nutshell. I do that pretty much every day of my life. I get a couple days off on the weekend here and there, but my favorite thing in the world is to draw. It's my hobby and my passion. So even when I'm not working, I kind of like to work. And I did just get a text from Donnie Cates. I don't think it showed up on the screen. We'll check what he said in a minute. So yeah, like when I start out a drawing, I like to do sort of a wireframe, so to speak, and that's what I'm doing right now is figuring out the exterior lines of everything. You don't want to get in there and start rendering, which is a step of the process where you're adding shadows and making things look more three-dimensional, because if you do that too early and you haven't figured out your drawing, then your drawing's going to look stiff and weird and kind of boring. So, kind of think of it like an animator at first. But, so this is that step. The next step I'll show you in a second is one that I like to do. It's not necessarily what everybody does, but it's a step that I find helpful, which is to spot the black that I will use. The black meaning shadows, which I do on a separate layer when I'm working digitally. So here we kind of have a drawing that's ready for me to spot the blacks. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I set it to 40%. Getting in the weeds with this, process, but I like to have it like a gray, so that I can, Anyway, so what I'm doing right now is I have to have decided a light source. In this case, the light source is going to be coming from up here, and then there will be some bounce light coming from his reflection on his own skin, or what, symbiote. That would be coming from this way. So this is like a lesser light source. This is a strong light source. So, whoops. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if you have any questions while I'm doing this, I'm happy to answer them. So, I don't know how many people are watching, but anybody out there, go ahead and ask. I think my sons are watching upstairs. Hi, sons. And their friends are watching, so hi. Amelia and Dahlia, if you're watching. It's a lot of fun to do these live streams. Just to kind of show people how I work, because when I was a kid, this is all I wanted to see, was to learn how people do this type of work, because it always looks like magic when it's done, but you never realize how many steps there are in the process. I've got a couple questions here that I'm going to start answering. From Ahmad Zawad Hassan: how can I overcome my art block? For me, art block is a luxury that I had before I became a professional artist. I don't have it anymore, because I can't have it, because every day I have to complete a new drawing for work. But having said that, I'll try to answer it from the perspective of when I used to have that, sort of thing go on. What I like to do, and this might not work for you, I don't know who this would work for really, but the way that I am, my whole thing is I want to tell a story. I love comic books because of the marriage of story and drawing. And so I just think of a story. And if I'm going to draw Spider-Man, one of the easiest ways to come up with a drawing for Spider-Man is you just think of a prop. What's something that would be cool for Spider-Man to interact with? If it's, let's say it's a lamppost. Well, that automatically conjures some pretty easy images. You would just start drawing. You would have Spider-Man perched on a lamppost, and then as you're drawing, your mind starts going, and you think of more things that you can add to that drawing, and it's fun. I mean, my best advice, honestly, is just to start with Spider-Man and go from there. That's what I did always. That's why when I started drawing Spider-Man at Marvel, I did Superior Spider-Man a while back, and I've done several Spider-Man titles. I did Scarlet Spider. I've done some Amazing Spider-Man. I've done Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, and I tend to always come back to Spider-Man's world, because that was what I did when I had artist block. Was, oh, well, let's just draw Spider-Man again because he's my favorite character, and he's what I know best. And then when I did start drawing him professionally, the very first time was in Marvel Adventure Spider-Man. It was a kids line of books of Spider-Man, and I felt like as soon as I started doing it, I was just like, oh yes, this is like, I had done some projects and they didn't really click for me. Like, they were very difficult to draw. And then as soon as I started drawing Spider-Man, I was like, this is so easy. Why is this so easy? Well, it was because I had spent my whole life doing that up to that point. So it was just like, breathing air to me. And yeah. And then, Venom and all that stuff, obviously I've read all these comics and drawn Venom, and so that was an easy transition too. But the funny thing about Venom was I didn't know that I would be good at Venom. I didn't know that. Like he is now like one of my favorite characters, probably my top three. But when I started doing it uh, professionally, I wouldn't have necessarily said that. I think that I've just learned that I love this character as I've worked on him. Next question, how long have I been doing this? Well, professionally, I've been doing it. I started getting work, sub minimum wage penciling work when I was about 23, and I am now 39. So 16 years, about maybe 15. We're probably getting close to 16 though. As far as drawing, my whole life. This has been a lifelong passion. I did go to college to be I had an English major, an English degree, but I always knew that I wanted to be a comic book artist from the time I was 15 years old. It's just something that's in my blood, and so I got out of college, moved into my parents' basement, and started doing it full time, and started getting work. It took about a year for me to start getting work. Like I said, less than minimum wage. Took another 4 years before I would say it was really a living. But I had supportive family and my wife and everybody, and so it all worked out. Okay, next question from Ayub Morkid. Would you like to draw Thor after this? Well, I do love Thor, and so the answer, yeah, but the Nick Klein is doing it right now, and boy, do I not want to follow Nick Klein. That guy's amazing. That book is incredible. I don't think that anybody needs to be trying to take that over from him. He's killing it. So, real quick, what I'm doing right now is I've just changed these to light blue. I'm going to start inking over the top of this. That was, that's my process, though. You're seeing how I bring this stuff to life. From Twitch, we have another question from Noxious Lull. What digital device do you use? I am using a Cintiq. I also use an iPad Pro. I'll use anything, So now I'm going to start inking, and this is something. What I like to do is I like to start from the black areas and move to because I've worked so hard to sort of figure out where everything's going to be. So I could start by outlining everything. A lot of guys do that. I like to start from the black and work my way to the edges. It just works for me. So that's what you're seeing me do right now. Let's see. Is this possible on paper? Stalker Taco asked. So I'm assuming you mean like, is it possible to do the spot black layer on paper? And the answer is there's different things that you can do. I don't know, like putting that like so when I was doing all traditional early in my career, and I wanted to do a practice test for how I was going to spot the black. I learned this, I can't remember how, but I found out that Neil Adams did this. So, he's one of the godfathers of comic books. He's one of the greatest artists ever. So if it's good enough for him, it was good enough for me. And I would take tracing paper and I would lay it over the page. And I would then take a Sharpie and do the spot blacks over the top. And then when you pulled up the tracing paper, you could look at it, and if you could see what the drawing was with no lines but just big blocky black areas, then you knew you had done a good job, and then I would kind of set that to the next to my drawing and use that as a guide for how I was going to finish my drawing. Okay, there's a lot of questions coming in, so one sec. So we got, how do you start off the basics in your drawing? So the structure. This is a question from Animal Saturn on Twitch. Animal Saturn 15. I get, so every drawing starts with structure, but it's hard to answer that because I've kind of internalized so much of that. But it's almost like you're drawing a wireframe. Like if you've ever seen a 3D rendering where they have all the squares on it, you know, like, and it all wraps around the form. Those are almost good drawings to do for practice, where you really feel the surface of the drawing. Like I said, all of that stuff is internalized for me now. I don't think about it that much. But for somebody that's starting out, that's always helpful. I also look at, there's a book by Preston J. Blair called Cartooning, where he shows a lot of they're simple cartoon drawings, but you see the way that they do cross sections and they structure a figure, that is extremely helpful, and you can apply that to comic books as well. So you know, you kind of start that way where you're thinking in 3 dimensions, and then, you know, like I said, you go through that, and then you move to you know, 3-dimensional, you know, shadows and anything else that you want. You know, like not every artist likes to use shadows even. Some of the guys like to leave, you know, do like a clean line thing, but everybody has to think about form in some way or another. Are your comic pages drawn traditionally, or do you do most of your art digitally? I do most of my art traditionally. I do my layout, my thumbnail is digital. And then I will print that out onto a piece of paper, and then I finish the pencils. I show you some that I've got next to me here, but they are all massive spoilers for upcoming issues of King in Black, and I would be in big trouble. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that it's good to have your foot in both pools, so to speak. You want to be able to do digital because there's you know, you don't want to get passed by with all the potential that digital offers, but you know, I do like the tactile feel of traditional as well. What's my fave Marvel character? I answered this before. Rain 2040 on Twitch. The answer is Spider-Man, naturally. I think you'd be hard pressed to find many people who wouldn't say that is their answer. Because I don't know, like I just kind of grew up with Spider-Man. He's my favorite. He's the coolest looking character in comics. You know, just how it is. Let's see. Right now I'm adding feathering. This is just kind of shadows. You see how the feathers, the lines kind of pull up towards the light, so they get thinner by the light and then thicker towards the shadow. And it just sort of shows, you know, that there's kind of like a gradient between the black and the white. Let's see. How do you know what colors to choose for shadows and shading? Well, I don't do color myself. I will do color comps. So when I'm trying to figure out a cover, I will sometimes color it on the thumbnail just so that I have a guide of what I'm going for. But personally, I don't necessarily do that. And so the answer, unfortunately, is that I don't know. And somebody asked from YouTube, what is your absolute favorite thing to draw? Well, I think that I'd have to go Spider-Man again. It's just so much fun. He's such a cool character. Yeah. So we're kind of blazing through this one, I think. Maybe by the end I won't be saying that, but right now I'm having a good time. Kind of. I was thinking about using this brush here. Let's see what this looks like. Doesn't look great, but it kind of looks cool. Kind of adds some cool texture. Let's see. More questions. Are there any characters you've wanted to draw in a comic that you haven't had an opportunity to draw yet? I am not going to answer that according to, because I don't want to say anything from DC. Definitely, I've drawn Thor, but I'd like to do more Thor. I'd like to draw the Hulk some more. I'd like to draw a lot of what I hope to accomplish in my career is I'd like to draw some of my own characters. I've got a whole catalog of guys that I'd like to bring to the light of day, and hopefully we'll do that someday. So, but yes, there's always new. The other thing is you kind of start working on stuff sometimes, like I said with Venom, and you're like, I didn't know that I wanted to draw this so bad. And then, you realize that you were born to do something like that. Like, I did a book called Inhuman a while back, and I drew Medusa. And she turned out to be one of my favorite characters to draw. And I never had, like, any thoughts about Medusa. I was just like, yeah, that's a character that exists, and could be, she's kind of neat, interesting. I like the Inhuman stuff, like that Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee did. But, it wasn't something that I thought that I would grow to love so much. And then now I'm like, kind of, sometimes I'm like, man, I need to draw Medusa again. So next question from Justin Runyon. Do you like making portraits, large panels like this, or creating action sequences more? It just depends on the day. I mean, this is fun in its own way. I like to draw action sequences probably more than anything in the world. I think that's one of the things that I like about comic books. Sometimes I will go through a series of pages where I'm like, man, did I forget how to draw? And the truth is, sometimes it's just because I haven't drawn any action sequences in a while. And then I'll do an action sequence and it all kind of clicks into place. Where suddenly I feel like I know what I'm doing again. So it's kind of a weird thing. Let's see. Michael Castro. Dude, I know you might get this a lot, but your art is amazing and it has inspired me. Aw. Actually, what if I was just making this up? Oh, and you're so handsome. Wow, thank you so much. But, no, he said, it has inspired me. How long does it typically take to draw an entire comic book? That is a great question. It varies. King in Black has been exceptionally difficult because there's just so many characters on every page, and we're in the midst of a pandemic, so it's a little harder mentally to put in the hours that it sometimes requires to draw a comic book. But I would say my ideal is 5 to 6 weeks per issue. Now, on King in Black, I haven't even come close to that. But, the deadlines haven't been as tight because things get pushed back for, obvious reasons. And so I haven't had to do that lately. But in general, I like to work. I like to draw. I like to get things done in that amount of time. And I kind of feel like that's a good amount of time. And what made the idea of drawing Venom appeal to you creatively? I think that there's sort of the horror element. I think that I like to draw horrific stuff. I like to draw melodramatic stuff, horror stuff. I like things that are over the top. And I like monsters. And so, you start drawing Venom, and he kind of has all those, like, especially the one that Donnie and I have been doing, has all those elements. It has all my favorite sort of things to draw. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, he's just a cool monster, and I can make them look cool. So that's what I try to do. Um, yeah. Grab my mouse here so I can get to more of your questions. Symbiote search from Twitch. Shorty Boys, one ick. What's the hardest Marvel character to draw? Uh, I've answered this a lot, and my stock answer is Iron Man. Um, he's just, he's kind of, he's got so many like pieces to his costume that it makes it a little bit difficult. But I actually kind of enjoy drawing Iron Man. I say that. So then, but then I don't know what the answer is because I guess I don't have one that I really dislike drawing. I feel like you just got to find your angle on everything. One of my favorite things about comics is how every artist tends to put their own spin on a character. So if it is a character that you're not going to love drawing, go ahead and give them your own spin that makes you enjoy drawing them. I mean, I've seen Iron Man done in many different ways. You know, sometimes he's very like Steve McNiven's is very much like the movies, and it's amazing looking. But I would never do that well. Like that wouldn't. It's he and I don't draw the same. So I try to, I make him a little more bendy and a little more like he's, the old Mobius thing where is he more iron than man or more man than iron? And so you in from drawing to drawing, sometimes he looks very Iron Man, and then sometimes he looks more man, and you just kind of have fun with it that way, and hope that people don't skewer you for inconsistencies. Um, let's see, Banacology. How pumped are you now that King in Black is out? Well, super crazy pumped because that book, I've been working on it for over a year, and it just came out on Wednesday. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. I think it was supposed to come out in September, initial plans. And obviously everything changed. I've said that before. But yeah, it was super exciting to have it finally come out, and then the response has been unbelievable. And sometimes, you just know when something you're working on is good. And I know that this is a good comic book that's really cool. And so I was super excited for it to come out, and then it did, and then it seems to have hit with everybody in a very special way, and um, yeah, I love it. Super excited. Uh, Now I'm getting into the drawing and getting harder to talk, but this is just how it goes. My wife makes fun of me because sometimes I'll have commissions to do, and I'll be like, I don't want to do that. Let's just, I don't feel like doing that right now. And then I'll start it, and then like 2 hours later, I'm just like, I can't speak, and I'm so into it and so fired up about what I'm drawing. It's almost like sometimes I know that it's so easy for me to get fired up about drawing that I avoid it so that I don't just like go off into my own little world, so that I'm interacting, because I could just spend all my time in this place. Got to get through this one so we can get to the full body. That one's a cool one. So we've got okay, next question. Alex Ha, how many comics have you drawn for? That is nearly impossible for me to guess, but a lot. I've been doing this, like I said, this 16 years. Um, so many. You know what I'll try to do? I'll try and name as many as I can. So I'm just gonna try and go in order. The first one I did was called Midnight Kiss. It was a independent book. Then I did a book called Magician Apprentice, which Marvel published. Then I did Marvel Adventures Spider-Man. Then I did Incredible Hercules. Then I did a book called She-Hulks. Well, first I did some She-Hulk backups in Incredible Hulk. Then I did the book called She-Hulks. Then I did X-23, which led to I did an Amazing Spider-Man issue. Then I did Scarlet Spider. I'm missing one in there, I feel like. Then I did Fantastic Four. Then I did Superior Spider-Man. Okay, now I'm losing it. What else did I draw, guys? Inhuman. Oh, Wolverine. Then I drew Inhuman. And then I drew... Was it Renew Your Vows? Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows? And then I did more Amazing Spider-Man stuff. I did the Venom Inc. storyline. And then I did Venom. And then Absolute Carnage. And King of Black. And blah, blah, blah. And yeah. Does that answer your question? I think I got most of it. Whew, that was tough. Oops. Okay, next question. What is it like to be an artist for Marvel? That's from Zach CH80. It's, dream come true, honestly. This is what like I said, at age 15, I said I wanted to be a professional comic book artist. I said I wanted to draw Amazing Spider-Man for a living. And in my 15-year-old mind, that seemed easy. Turned out it was incredibly hard. But, I came up with it was my dream, and I did it. And so, like, sometimes I have to pinch myself, and but I try to keep it in perspective and have a good time with it, so that I'm always grateful for all that I've been able to do, and be grateful to all the people that helped me get to where I am. Like my parents, and I said my parents, my wife earlier. My kids who put up with me working all the time. Let's see. From YouTube is, if Venom is weak to fire, does he feel pain when he listens to mixtapes? It's a pretty good one. He listens to good mixtapes, and we've all heard of, they're not all good, but I do like hip hop a lot, so I will say Venom loves hip hop as well, and he handles it well. Okay, let's see. Who are my inspirations? So many to name. I Joe Quesada comes to mind. Michael Golden's one of my all-time favorite artists. I'm a huge Todd McFarlane fan. Basically, my favorite art style is cartoony drawings with realistic rendering, so like a realistic finish on sort of cartoony drawings. So Greg Capullo, Dave Finch, all these, Arthur Adams. There's so many. But yeah, inspired by a ton of guys. Just hope to be that inspiration for the next, generation of young artists. Let's see. Getting close on this one. Probably spent too much time goofing around on it, but what are you gonna do? That's one of the things about my style that, I don't regret it, because I like the way it looks, and I like heavily rendered stuff. But man, drawings take me so much longer than they need to, because of all the lines I like to put them out. I just turned in a cover today that I just swear I filled up that whole dang thing with lines. It's nuts. Okay, so let's see. From Twitch, TR33KO. What do you think of Donnie Cates, Greg Land, Jay Leiston, and Frank D'Armata's work? Uh, I work with Donnie. One of my best friends in the world. So big fan. I'm also very close friends with Jay. Um, he'll be thrilled that he got a shout out on this live stream. So I have a group of friends that are artists that we like to talk on Skype all day while we work because we're all kind of doing the same job. And drawing is one of those things where you can kind of, as you can see, talking and drawing. There's a disconnect in what part of your brain is needed. So it kind of can get lonely. So you talk to your buds and just have a good time. Um, so yeah, Jay's part of that group. And then as for Greg Land's work, I think that Greg's a great artist. He's been around a long time. He's done some of the coolest comics. I've met Greg. He's a super nice guy. And Frank D'Armata is a great colorist. So I just read House of M with Frank D'Armata's colors in it the other day, and was thinking about how good of a colorist he is. And I've never worked with him, which is odd because I've pretty much worked with everybody at this point. Um, so yeah, getting close on this one. What do we think? Looking good, right? Let's see. Uh, so we've got I draw spiders. What are your three major art influences, artists, art movements, themes? Well, I mean, the the I'm when I'm because I'm drawing comic books, I'm super inspired by comics. I'm super inspired by lit. I'm a big reader. I like to read a lot. So I guess that's the other types of art that I'm inspired by. I do, go to, this is a tough question. I just like comic books, okay? I like the marriage of story and art. I said that earlier. That's what I'm inspired by is I want to be able to tell stories with art. I'm gonna, my plan is to start writing some more. The hard part about me writing some more is that I would like working with Donnie so much. He's such a great writer that I don't feel the need to push that end of my career as much as as much as it was part of my plan as I sort of grew as an artist. But I am going to start writing more, be it for Marvel or whatever. And so, yeah, I just want to be able to tell stories, essentially. Like I said, I was an English major because I love writing and reading and all that stuff. And prior to being a comic book artist, I definitely invested time in both. Okay. Oh, what would you consider your art style to be from ACHCH80 on Twitch? Well, exactly what I said earlier. Cartoony with realistic rendering. Um, I think that I like the expression of cartooning, and then I like it to take it because I mean, you can see animation and animation. Um, Not 3D and 2D animation, there's a certain level of detail that you can get in there because it has to move, and it would be impossible to render everything with, um, perfectly because it would just look insane and it would be hard to move it. So tend to I like anything that looks cartoony, but then somehow has like that realistic edge to it, and um, and I like style. I like uh, artists to have their own voice and I like to be able to identify a drawing immediately upon seeing it, like, oh, that's such and such artist. And if that is achieved, I mean, that's the beauty of comic books. The amount of people involved in making one single comic book is so much fewer than in other media. That you're really getting a unfiltered view of what that artist likes or who that artist is, because there's so few cooks in the kitchen, and it's really cool. I mean, I think that's what resonates with a lot of people, is just different art styles and all that. So let's turn off that blue layer. What do we think? I think it's cool. I'll give it assign it, and we'll move to the full body drawing. A little Stegosaurus signature. Okay, let's see. I've got some drawings. Okay. I've got some drawings in here. I'm going to show you guys in a few, from some young artists. Hey, Aaron, do we have any from the boys?
Neither of them would do it.
Tell them they have to.
Oh, okay.
From YouTube. Oh, here we go. From on Twitch. James Cool Comics. Do you have a favorite Spider-Man artist all time? Well, my first favorite of ever was Todd McFarlane, because that was kind of my entry point. So he's up there. We've got, I love Ross Andrew, John Romita Sr., John Romita Jr. Ryan Otley right now is doing amazing work on that book. Humberto Ramos, man. I mean, Spider-Man is one of the sort of, that is a book for the best of the best artists. And there's been so many. I don't want to leave any out and hurt any feelings, because I just always have been a Spider-Man guy, and Mark Bagley is great. I'm definitely the best one. Just kidding. But I did do some work on it, and I'm very proud of it. As you can see, I'm starting on the full body Venom. We're going to give him wings. This is just kind of a fun, Venom pose from, the wings are something that Donnie and I introduced in our run, as a new power set, sort of. There's dragons in our book. Spoiler alert. Start with Venom issue 1. But we have dragons, and it's really cool. And Venom ends up with wings. From Red Edge on Twitch. Yo, Mr. Stegman, big Captain Marvel fan here. Just passing by to thank you for that incredible cover variant of Absolute Carnage, Captain Marvel. Simply stunning work. I didn't draw that. I don't think. Oh, with Captain Marvel, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I did draw something. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just say thank you. Because I'm sure that if I did draw Captain Marvel, a bunch of freaking rule, right? From YouTube, any thoughts on Procreate as a software for drawing comics? Yes, that's a great program. I know a few guys that like to use that. I use Clip Studio because I got used to it on my computer, and then I switched over to my iPad, and that was a great, program that kind of goes between the two. But Procreate was great too. It's wonderful. It's a great drawing tool. You can paint in it. I like to mess around in it, but I know that you can do almost all the same things that you can in Clip Studio. So whatever it takes to get the job done, I'm all for it. I think that, like I said, I know professionals who swear by Procreate. So, whatever floats your boat. We're going to zoom in a little bit here. I'll zoom back out when I after I ink some of this. You can kind of see what I'm doing a little closer here. Um, do you ever spend drawing from YouTube? Do you ever spend time drawing styles outside of your own for practice or whatnot? Um, outside, so like everybody should spend time in a sketchbook, of course. I I feel like I do less um, outside of my style than I used to. I feel like I've just kind of nailed down my style, and I'm proud of my style and what it looks like. And so I'm not constantly trying to do. I mean, there was a period of my career where even like I felt like I was my style was kind of getting jumbled because I was pushing in so many different directions at the same time, and it was a great learning experience. But it kind of it was I think it was even confusing in a single issue to see me do like multiple styles. So I feel like I've kind of cooled it on that front, and um, I've started to um, do my own thing fairly consistently. And if I go to a life drawing class, I'm going to draw as realistic as possible. I'm not going to draw in my style at that point. Um, but uh, in as far as um, as far as just drawing for fun, the only thing I'll do differently is like when I draw with my kids, I'll draw these. I draw super cartoony, just like wild cartooning because that's what appeals to them and it's fun. But when I was really young, I wanted to be an animator, and or I wanted to have like a Sunday comic strip. I was really into the Sunday comics. Um, but that was then, and then I found comic books. I found Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, and I was like, oh nope, I was wrong. This is what I wanted to do all along. So here we are. Let's see what else. Do you ever spend? What's the best way to get noticed as a comic book artist? Um, I it's online. The answer is online. You gotta. I mean, I'll give a shout out to the Art Jedi on Twitter. There's a 15-year-old who is definitely on my radar because he sends me his drawings and they get better and better, and he's got a lot of talent. And so you just kind of do that. Like that's how I got. I got all my work initially in my career, and this was before Twitter. Uh, by by badgering people online. I wouldn't say badgering, but I was that was the way that I approached it. Was I would join these forums or these um, different websites and just try anything I could to um, get noticed. And eventually I started to, but I mean, I think it was just like interacting with people and being friendly and putting my art out there on various websites that it could get passed around. Um, so that's the way, in my opinion. I know that a lot of guys say go to conventions, and that's true. That's a good way to. I think that's a good way to sort of put the icing on the cake, so to speak. So like once they kind of know who you are, if you go and you meet them in person, then they're going to put a name to a face, and that's helpful. But I don't know that it's necessary until you kind of have established a rapport with someone. Otherwise, you feel like you're just kind of hovering around and hoping somebody will notice you, and it just doesn't really work that way anymore. I think that the conventions used to be more that way, but not really anymore. Um, okay, next question. From Facebook, Christian Mora. Any artists you haven't had the pleasure of meeting as of yet that you would love to interact with or collaborate on a project with? Um, sure. I mean, I haven't met. I always think about. Uh, I've never met Barry Windsor Smith, which I would love to. He's an all-time favorite of mine. Um, I haven't met John Romita Jr. in person. Um, As for collaborating, I mean, I don't know how I would collaborate with anybody. I draw, they draw, so that's not really a question that I can answer. But as for the other part, yeah, the Ramita, Barry Windsor Smith, stuff, guys like that. I've met a lot of my heroes, which is very fun, especially when they become like your friend. Um, because I would have never believed that when I was younger. I've talked on the phone with a bunch of the guys that I love, and they're all so nice. And I think it's hard when you're doing this job to know how much of an impact you've had on somebody when they're growing up. I know that for me, for example, when somebody like gushes over my work and tells me, whatever, that I just kind of feel like, yeah, right, you're just buttering me up. But the truth is, with some of these guys, for me, it was like I was completely obsessed with them. Like sometimes I'll be out hanging out with Humberto Ramos, and I'm like, I can't, I can't convey to him how much of my mind his work occupied when I was younger. Like how huge of a part of my life that was. There's no way to actually convey how much that meant to me. Um, let's see. We've got Jeffrey Niffin. How do you come up with your pages for sequentials and or pinups? Do you have an idea and then look at reference, or look for poses and choose one to use? Um, so this is a difficult topic because I don't want to steer anybody wrong. I don't use a lot of photo reference. Um, the reason being that I used enough in the past that I've internalized it. So whatever you need, I mean, I will, if I can't get something right, I definitely will use reference, but I don't need it like this pose, for example. This was just straight out of my head. This is a fairly simple pose. I'm not going to pretend that it's like the most difficult thing in the world to draw this. Um, but yeah, mostly it just comes out of my head, and I've learned proper drawing technique, which is one of the um, one of the reasons I can do this. Uh, so the answer, I guess, is use reference when you need it, and don't if you don't. I like to try to come up with stuff out of my head. I feel like it gives it more of like an organic, exciting sort of movement to it, like um, a flow or an energy. Um, but up to you guys how you. There's plenty of great artists that use photo reference for everything. Stuart Immonen is one of the best to ever do it, and he uses a ton of reference. Um, but like I'm probably a little cartoonier, and I can get away with my fake anatomy and stuff like that. So, um, from Renee J. Soriano, dude, love your podcast, and what was your inspiration on drawing Null? Um, Thank you. I do have a podcast. I'll plug that now. It's called Stegman and His Amazing Friends. You can get it on iTunes or Spotify. Um, it's a podcast where like if you want to know more about King in Black, for example, we have an episode last week where I answered questions about King in Black. Um, but yeah, it comes out weekly, and it's fun. Donnie Cates is on it a lot, and we just talk comics. Um, what was my inspiration for drawing Null? I don't really know. I can't remember now because it was a couple years ago. But it's more of like a vibe that I try to convey with Null. He's, sort of flippant about what about the way that he acts. It's very much like a Dracula type vibe, I guess. Like he's very not impressed with his own abilities. He's just like, just get this over with. Look, I'm gonna have to destroy your whole planet. Uh, but I'd like to get this over with as fast as possible. And I just kind of like tried to have his look reflect that. I'm gonna take a little break here. I'm gonna show you guys a couple drawings. This is from Dahlia, our neighbor. who is good friends with my sons. Dahlia, age 9, drew this Venom. Very cool. That's really good. I love it. Pretty cool, right? And then we've got Melia, who is also my kid's friend, and she drew Venom also. So that's Melia, age 11. She kind of was drawing along with us, it looks like, on the first drawing, and she did a great job. Very impressive. I'm hoping to get my sons to draw something, but, you know, they are, you know, bad boys. They don't listen. Let's see. Kermit James. What was the decision to give the King in Black a spider dragon on his chest? Doesn't Venom get his from being attached to Spider-Man? So, I've seen this come up a lot. And I'm going to do my best to explain this. The idea, the spider symbol that appears, alright, how am I going to explain this? So, the symbiote takes on like sort of memories or aspects of everything that it comes in, you know, bonds with. Now, symbiotes are obviously all descended from Null, who wears the dragon symbol. Now, when Spider-Man wore the symbiote, his was a spider, but it wasn't the same spider that Spider-Man wears. So, what it did was it assimilated the spider symbol into the Null symbol. Thank you. Is Harrison working on it?
And then the girls are doing more.
So basically what you ended up with when Spider-Man first wore the symbol was a combination of the dragon and the spider. So that's why it looks similar, but they're both playing on each other. They're an equal part of the symbol that he ended up with. Does that make sense? I know it does. Whatever I said is law. Thank you. Here, my son Oliver has drawn a Venom for us. Oliver's age 9. There you go. Not bad, son. I've been teaching him how to use blue pencils and Lightbox lately. It's a lot of fun. And I'm sorry for calling you guys bad boys if you guys are watching upstairs. You guys are great. So from Twitch, we have Aaron Trudel. Hi, Ryan. Just want to say you're awesome and I love your art. My question is, how do you know if you're an artist? Well, if you... That's interesting. If you make art, you're an artist, period. There's no qualifications other than making art makes you an artist. Like if you play video games, you're a gamer. If you play baseball, you're a baseball player. You know, like to get more specific, it's not something I ever worried about. I just I didn't have any choice. I had to draw. That's how I felt. I just loved doing it, and I never thought twice about it. I didn't really think much of it as a career as a kid. Like I said, I kind of wanted to be an animator, but I didn't really understand what that entailed until I got older. So if it's in you and you can't keep yourself from doing it, then you're an artist. That's my final answer. That's my definition. You know. But yeah, all you gotta do to be an artist is make art. Animal Saturn 15. How do you get the smooth shadows? I think you mean what tool was I using? I'm using a tool that somebody made for Clip Studio called Daub Expressive Stroke. I don't know who made it. I got it from my friend Iban Coelho, who also has worked on Venom. and it's just got a nice little gradient to it that I find neat. So, look up Daub, DAUB expressive stroke if you're looking to use that digital tool that gives you that sort of thing. Let's see. Hold on. From YouTube, what do you feel makes your art unique? Uh, I don't know. That's for other people to answer. I feel like I draw the way that I feel that I'm interested in drawing, and if that makes it unique, then great. I I think. I mean, I kind of talked about this earlier, but I think that the interesting thing about comics is that you can see what's inside, the artist's head. That's what interests me, is finding the artist that their art speaks to me in some way. And again, because there's so few filters between them and what you read at home, uh, you get a lot of different types of styles and cool stuff. And so then you get to choose, like, well, I like this artist because they do this thing that I like, and I like this artist because they do this thing. And then you kind of refine your tastes, and as you get older, your taste changes, and you have different favorite artists at different points in your life. Just a fun hobby. Hey Ryan, do you have a favorite Spider-Man arc? An all-time favorite Spider-Man arc? Um, so, I mean, Superior Spider-Man genuinely is one of my favorite arcs, and I can say that, I feel like, without sounding too big-headed, because didn't draw, I only drew, if even a third of it, because we also had Giuseppe Camuncoli working on it, and Umberto Ramos, uh, but I'll say, outside of that, I really, really had a good time with Bendis and Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man, and I know that was kind of like a retelling of Spider-Man, but that really worked for me. I think that was the opening, like 20 issues of that really spoke to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, the death of Gwen Stacy is obviously amazing, and there's so much good stuff. But recently I've been reading J. Michael Straczynski's run, where with the spider totems and all that crazy stuff. Um, so, it's always hard for me to pick my favorite. It's like picking between your children. Just impossible to do. But you do your best. This image that I'm inking right now digitally, I am probably going to do a final, like an actual pencil, nice tight version of this, and I think it will be used as a cover as well. So that's something to look forward to. That's just a little inside info. Be ready for that. Twitch, WebDamon3. Sorry if someone already asked this. What brush is that you're using for shading? Creates nice and organic looking hatching very quickly. Also, to state the obvious, you're an amazing artist. Thank you. Daub Expressive Stroke is the name of the brush that I was using for the shading. Right now I'm using one called Feather Fawcett from Friendon. Ray Friendon, who has a brush set that you can get online. But, I'll use whatever it takes to get the drawing the way I want it. But thank you for asking. Thanks for saying I'm an amazing artist. If my kids are upstairs watching, you hear that, kids? I'm an amazing artist. Wife too, Aaron, if you're listening. Keep that in mind. From Armored Magician. Venom wings are the absolute best. Hey Ryan, love your art. Do you feel like the writing of a story reflects changes or such in your art and how you bring it across? The answer to this is yes. The story absolutely changes the way that I approach it. I don't think about it before I start a project, how I'm going to approach it and how it's going to be different. But then as soon as I start working on it, I feel like the tone takes over and I just fall into how it will best work. It's just like a feeling. It's an interesting thing. Um, but yeah, that's it definitely changes. I mean, even just like how jagged or how um, so like I like to do a lot of like angles on my figures, and I tend to um, draw very sort of jagged, and sometimes I will um, uh, soften the way that I'm drawing. Sorry, I'm trying to think about multiple things here. Um, I'll tend to soften the way that I'm drawing because the story isn't that type of story. It's not scary. It's not aggressive. It's more like heartfelt. Even from scene to scene, sometimes that happens, and I feel like you can convey information in those subtleties of the way that you're drawing. So, yeah, we got a couple more drawings. Harrison, my 6 year old, has drawn a Venom, a beautiful Venom, using it looks like some sort of paint marker. Criminy. There you go. Good job, Harrison. Awesome. And then Dahlia has drawn us it looks like a Venom wearing a tutu dancing, saying, "Oh God, I love this." So here's Dahlia, age 9. She's drawn us another. If you noticed, my wife came in a few minutes ago and I started laughing. That's because I saw this. Dahlia's a lunatic. Uh, and then somebody asked again, do I have a favorite Spider-Man arc? Kind of answered that. I kind of danced around answering it honestly because, like I said, it's hard to nail down one. But um, and then Captain Chris, any tips for using the Cintiq and Clip Studio? Uh, just you got to dive in. So one of the things that I've noticed, anytime you're going to use a new program or anything like that for drawing, I'll I'll start by like dipping my toe in, but it's not until I'm just like, okay, I can't I can't bail on this. I have to figure this out. That I'll figure out how to use it properly. Meaning, like, I just take away the safety uh, blanket of using other programs or whatever. So I would just say, just dive in. Say, I'm going to do this until I get it down, and that's it. And lo and behold, by the end of the week, you'll have a pretty good idea of how to do it. Let's move this into the center here so you guys can get a good look at it. Tips for drawing goopy stuff like a symbiote without a host, that sort of organic, liquidy, solid stuff. Um, so that's the stuff that I love. And the reason is I love to draw things that move. I love movement on the page that conveys. So, like, when you're looking at a drawing and it looks like it's breathing and it's moving, even though it's a two-dimensional image, that's my favorite stuff. So, uh, really what I'm doing when I'm trying to draw goop, I'll do a separate layer here and then I'll erase it. Um, when I'm trying to draw something goopy, so to speak, just a lot of arcs. You're just kind of like feeling like, you know. So you got this, and you just see all these arcs, and then you got overlap. So this part overlaps here, so you can see that it's in front of the other part. And I mean, it's just sort of a feeling of movement you're just conveying. Uh, and that's really all I mean, I don't know that I have any sort of method beyond that. It's kind of weird. It's one of those things um, like I said with the previous thing where I was like saying that you draw differently because you feel a certain way. Movement and that sort of goopy type stuff is very much something that you just feel, and you got to feel it. So it's like drawing a pose. This is a good tip that I really enjoyed. There's these books by Walt Stanchfield from Disney, who was a Disney animator, and he he talks about gesture when you're drawing like um, a figure, and he said you got to just stand up and do the pose because then you feel it in your own body, and then you can convey what that feeling was in your drawing. And it's weird because you can. And so like sometimes you're just searching for that feeling, and that's what you're doing when you're drawing stuff like goop that moves around and whatnot. We have from YouTube. Hi, really love your art. Thank you. Would you recommend enrolling to some art school? I really want to get into doing comics or even animation, but I don't know if it'll be worth it. I did not go to art school. Now, that I'd say, again, take that with a grain of salt. I think I would recommend art school. I think that there were those years of my life that I wasn't focused on art, and I think that I would have been more advanced at a earlier age if I had gone to art school. So you can do it multiple ways. I don't think it's necessary, but I wouldn't say that it's a waste of time or money. I think that anything that keeps you focused on what your goals are and all that is a good idea. There's some good comic book art schools. I went and did a talk at Savannah College of Art and Design a few years back, and I was amazed at how good some of those kids were at drawing. And I was told when I would kind of brought that up that most of them weren't even near as good in their first year, but they grew so much because they were sort of in a community of artists and learning from each other. And so, I really like that. I do personally. I wish there was more opportunity for um, apprenticeship in this business. But that's not really it used to be that artists just kind of like lived in New York City and that's how it worked. That's not necessarily the case anymore. So you gotta uh, you know go to school or at least find online. You can find a community. That's what I did. I started out on this site called Digital Webbing with Ryan Otley was on there. He now draws Spider-Man. Mahmoud Asrar was on there. He's an X-Men guy. We've known each other since we were kids, basically, because we were all trying to break into comics, and we would post our art, and we would give each other critiques and learn from each other, and it was cool. So, it, the the very bottom line is at least you need to find a peer group. If you can find that without going to school, and you feel like it's focusing you, and you're focused on getting better and improving, then that's good. But if you need a little nudge, or you don't have that, then you go to college for it. We have another drawing of baby Venom from Melia. I really like this one. Yeah, it's great. These guys are killing it up there. Are they still doing more? Or? Well, tell them I said thank you. Huh? All right. Okay. Favorite Spidey suit, the original. The fact of the matter is, it's the greatest design in superhero comics. Uh, you can tell this by how often they tweak it, and it's still the same thing essentially. But they tweak it in so many different ways, and it still looks awesome. Like, you take the original Spider-Man suit and you make it all black. Oh, looks amazing. You you can change up the you can change up anything on it, and as long as you keep that face and you keep some of the webbing. I mean, I guess you don't even have to because of the black suit, but like in Spider-Man Big Time that Umberto did all those different Spider-Man designs, they all looked great because it's such a strong design that the base is so strong that you can't really mess it up. It's really neat. Like it's like a trick. I don't know how he did that. Um, how Steve Ditko did that, or I think Kirby helped him with that one too. But yeah, there's something about. There's also the way that children react to it that lets you know that there's something special in its DNA. Like a kid sees Spider-Man, and they perk up right away. You know, like I remember my kids when they were little. They Spider-Man was the first superhero they could identify, and they've both been Spider-Man for Halloween, and you know, including this year when Harrison decided he wanted to be Spider-Man. Or no, Oliver was Spider-Man this year. So yeah. Oh, Harrison was Carnage. That's right. Let's see. Are there any character? Are there any? Oh, what is your favorite comic books of Venom? Oh wait, first we'll go to when drawing Venom. Do you ever get lost in where the shadow and highlights should be? Not really. That's again. I don't want to sound like flippant about it because I know that these are things that as a young artist can be difficult. Um, but again, like so much of this is internalized for me by now that it's not it's not something I have to think too much about. It's kind of autopilot, to be honest. Uh, in a good way, autopilot in a good way. Uh, so no, but if you are getting confused, you just keep pushing. You keep doing it and doing it and doing it um, until it becomes second nature to you. From David Garcia, what is your favorite comic books of Venom? Well, I'm very partial to the Mark Bagley Venom stuff, just because that was in my wheelhouse. Lethal Protector is a favorite. Um, I did love the Angel Medina, and I think it was Zeb Wells wrote it, maybe, or Paul Jenkins. They did some really cool Venom stuff. The original McFarlane stuff was cool. I mean, gosh, I mean, I really like what Donnie and I do. We keep coming back to this. What's your favorite, such and such? Oh, it's the thing I worked on. But I genuinely do love it. Like, as a fan of the writing of it, I think it's a really great take on Venom. So, you know, that's my answer for now. But there's so many. Venom's a great character, and I think he's gonna be around for a long time, and he's another character who kids seem to react to. And again, Venom even is a variation on a Spider-Man costume. So there you go. Who's my favorite X-Man? Oh, are there any characters that haven't had a symbiote that you'd like to design a Venom form for? Well, I can't think of any, and honestly, we did do. So we did Absolute Carnage, and in the room we were trying to think of characters that hadn't had a symbiote. We didn't want that event to be something where, it was just like this character gets a symbiote, and so that's the whole crux of the story, because that's been done so much. But we did want, we did realize in the room that Hulk hadn't had one before, so that's a character that we decided, well, we have to be the first to put Hulk in a symbiote, and we did that in Absolute Carnage. Sorry if I'm spoiling anything for anybody. Other than that, I mean, so many people have worn the symbiotes now that it's almost like impossible to come up with somebody that hasn't. So we kind of did the one that I wanted to do, and that's that. Another question. Let's see. From Twitch, Michael J. Lyle, hey Ryan, other than Venom, which is your favorite symbiote? To draw or because of their personality? I personally love Sleeper. You and Donnie better keep him alive. Dot dot dot. Ooh, that ominous dot dot dot. Uh, my favorite. So Scream is pretty cool. I got to design Agent Anti Venom, which design is a strong word. That was in Venom Inc. But it was cool. We Flash Thompson merged with the anti venom serum or whatever happened, and we did this like white Venom with black logo and everything, and he was pretty neat looking. Uh, so that was fun. Um, who else do I like? Oh, Mania's cool. Mania's got a great looking design. Uh, so yeah, that's who I can think of off the top of my head. Um, Sorry, getting into the drawing again. Spidey's suit is blue with red or red with blue? That's quite the question. I don't know the answer. Uh, uh, we'll say red with blue, I guess. I don't know. What's going on? What is? I don't get it. I don't get that question. Do you guys? Okay, next question. Uh, from Twitch, Banachology. Dear Ryan, how do you interact with the colorist? So, I work with Frank Martin right now, and essentially I'm hands off with him. He's so good. I rarely have, the only thing that I do is catch like little errors. I don't necessarily push him to do anything in particular, um, because he's better at it than I am. He's, I don't know that every colorist would get me as well as Frank does, but he gets it. So I'm just hands off. The pages come in, and 90% of the time, I'd say I'm just like, well, great job, Frank. Pat on the back. You did great. And that's about that. Yeah. So that's my answer. Is you don't have to, when you have a great colorist, you don't have to say much. Um, and most Marvel colorists are very good at their jobs. It's just the way it works. Any more questions? We're low on questions. I'm getting close to the end here, guys. But, you know. Right now I'm just kind of going in and smoothing out some of these areas where I have the shading going on. It's a neat tool. It's fun to play with. Normally this would all be feathering, and it would take me ages, but since it's digital, I get in there and I can sort of make it work easier. How do I deal with work burnout? I rarely have felt that way. Especially lately, I've been sort of working at a more reasonable pace because, uh, my deadlines weren't as hectic. Um, but I guess I don't know. I guess I feel like maybe like once or twice I've been burnt out and just kind of took a vacation and took a couple days off, and I found that I wanted to get back to it, so I did. Uh, yeah. So just if you love it, it'll be hard to burn you out, and that's the truth. I mean, at the end of the day, when I, when I'm done working, sometimes I feel kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. But it's not so bad. It's still the best job in the world. Just kind of adding shading here, having a little fun with it. Got done pretty quick, so I'm just gonna detail it for the heck of it, because I can. How do you shut it off when you work from the place you live? That's tough. That's tough. That is a skill that I've learned to deal with over years and years because that was very hard to adjust to. Um, you have to learn when to shut off the work and not come back to it for a while at night. You need to just make sure you get enough time winding down before you go to sleep. I try to keep a very regular schedule. I wake up, at the same time. I work the same hours every day. I exercise a lot. I have a very regimented schedule, and I think that helps because, um, I definitely started out where my schedule morphed into I was going to bed at 4 a.m. and waking up at noon, or I wore it as a badge of honor that I didn't sleep. I would sleep um, 4 hours in the night and be like, that's enough. I have to get to work now. And it wasn't, after a while you start to feel like you're going crazy. So what I learned was you have to get your sleep. You have to, make sure that you have a very regimented schedule, and it's like a real job. Like you need to go in when it's time to go in, and you need to clock out when it's time to clock out, and get your work done in the hours that you're there. And if you're gonna mess around and not do that, you're gonna have trouble. Uh, Will Sliney from Twitch, looking great, Ryan. Hype. Will Sliney's a great artist in his own right. Did a bunch of Spider-Man 2099 that was really cool. Thank you, Will. Will works for Marvel and kicks a lot of butt. That's cool that you're watching. Let's see. My sisters have decided to start texting me a bunch during this. That's interesting. Let's add some splatter for no other reason than that it looks cool. Is there a specific Venom design throughout history that you think is your favorite? Um, I mean, I just the classic. I mean, the original McFarlane / Bagley look is awesome always. Um, let's see. Uh, yeah, I mean, he's a good-looking character as he is. I don't think that you need to do much to him. Is there Ryan? Oh, from Grovets on Twitch. Ryan, favorite cover you've done? Well, funny you should ask. I think I just did one of my best ones today that I just turned in a couple hours before this. So, you'll see that when you see it, but I did a pretty rad one. That's all I can say about that. Do you have from YouTube? Do you have any tips for drawing hands? I think that you just need to realize. Well, first of all, this goes back to the reference thing. If you can't get the hand right, you got to use reference. You got to learn how to draw through, how to make everything three-dimensional. You got to take a photo of your own hands, and you got to make the shape or the pose that you're gonna do with your hand, because you got to be able to feel how it feels. But you need to also realize that a single hand is like as complex as a whole human body. So don't let it discourage you, is what I basically mean by that. Is a hand is so hard to draw that you need to devote as much time as it takes to get it right. And that means sometimes that can drive you crazy. But you gotta do what you gotta do. It's just keep doing it until you've internalized how to do it. And once you've internalized how to do it, then it gets easier and easier. It's not the biggest deal in the world to me anymore, but I do remember the days where it was really, really hard. And hopefully I'm through them. But I mean, there's still days where a hand gets away from me and I have to spend a bunch of time figuring it out. But then the next time that I draw a similar hand or whatever, it's not as hard because I figured it out that one time. Let me zoom this in for you guys. Get it back in the center of the screen. Oh, rotating. That's not the right thing. Looky there. Awesome man 1810 from Twitch. Quick! If you could have a superpower of a Marvel character, what would you pick? Maybe like Wolverine's, like being invulnerable is pretty awesome. I think. Like, what would you be afraid of then? I think I'd pick something like that. Maybe maybe flight. I don't know, take your choice of characters that can fly. That's a pretty good one. I mean, being Spider-Man, as we've seen in the comics, he's super powerful, but he has a hard life, so I wouldn't necessarily say that. Gonna add a couple more weird little knickknacks here. How come I can't zoom in? So there we go. Just adding some spray here, separating Venom from his wings for fun. Who is my favorite Marvel villain? I'm very partial to Doc Ock. Uh, Mainly, a lot of it has to do with the story that we did in uh, Superior Spider-Man, but I always liked him when I was a kid too. And I really like Doctor Doom. I think he's a really cool character. And I've had a lot of fun in the past drawing Magneto and various things that always comes up, and I have a blast doing it. So. Have I ever met Stan Lee? Absolutely. I met him several times. The first time I was at a convention in Las Vegas, and his handler was a fan of my art, and he came up to my table and said, hey, do you want to go meet Stan? And I was like, of course I want to meet Stan, but right now I can't. I have to do a signing thing. And so he said, okay. Maybe another time. But then I'm doing the signing, and all of a sudden Stan Lee walks up, and like everybody, the only way I knew something was weird was happening because all of a sudden everybody was like quiet and moving like side away to the side. I was like, what's going on? And then up walks Stan Lee, and he said, "Wonderful work," and I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. And I shook his hand, got my picture with him. It was great. And then, after that, I would see him randomly at conventions. I saw you just be hanging out with somebody, and Dan, like Stan knew Dan Slott, so like Dan and I are friends, and we were standing at a convention one time, and up walks Stan Lee, and he just starts talking to Dan Slott like they're old friends, and I'm just like, oh my god, what is happening right now? I think I'm in the wrong place. But he's just talked to us like we were old friends, and that was cool. So then another time, a similar situation. Just I'm standing in a hotel lobby after a convention, and his handler again walks up and says, "Oh, hey, Ryan," and Stan just starts talking to me like he knows me, and so we talked for a minute, and I let him go because he was obviously tired after a long day at the convention, but those were the times, and it was great. I was honored to have met him in person. Couldn't be a nicer guy. And I think we're about done with questions, and I'm about done with this drawing, so perfect timing. Really hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to do. And I'm going to sign this. Say thank you to everybody who watched. You really appreciate it. I have one last question that I'll answer. What does it take to get you to draw me in the background of a comic? Like in old cartoons, how they'd have those sacks with money in them, and they would have the dollar signs. I want one of those. It doesn't have to have money in it. I just want one of the sacks. I don't have one. If you get me one, I will put you in the background of a comic. Okay. So, I want to say thanks for watching. To everyone out there. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
What kind of music do you play at a party and everybody's there to see you off? What kind of music do you play at a party and everybody's there